Good morning, everyone. Welcome to session number 7, which is the last session of our ComCall Conference 2020. This session is about digital collection mobility, and my name is Doriana, and I will be moderating this session. Good morning to you all from Costa Rica, and welcome to this session. You know that in the current times of COVID-19, that we are living in, this topic is very relevant, especially for museums, our collections, and especially to our visitors. And this session is about what digital collections offer to us as museum professionals and to our audiences, and what are the possibilities of connecting to more people or to connect to other collections and make new narratives. So we will be listening to two experts in the field. We have Alina Stulikova from the Pushkin State Museum of Fine Arts in Moscow. She works in the Department of Cinema and Media Art, and she will be talking about digital unity in physical reality, which is very related to media art. And in her abstract, she mentions that due to its ephemeral and intangible nature, media art can create connections and penetrate even close borders, and that media art allows museums to build cooperation between one another in the field of collecting by creating shared collections when institutions jointly acquire art pieces. And she believes also that in a world where the resources are limited, sharing is the key to sustainability. We are going to also be listening to Antonio Rodriguez, who may be joining us or maybe not, because he has he's dealing with an urgent job issue, but I'm going to present him as well. He is the chairman of ICOM ICEE and senior advisor of international programs and strategic partnerships in Washington. And he will be presenting the legacy of the Silk Roads, creating new opportunities for digital engagement. But we are going to start with Alina. So Alina, thank you very much for joining us today, and the floor is all yours.
Great, thank you. I would like to say, first of all, that I would like to thank the committee for selecting my contribution for this conference, because it's a pleasure for me to be a part of it and to have a chance to speak about media art that me and my colleagues are so passionate about. And to my deepest regret, media art sometimes get a little bit disregarded by many public events, because it's a very special field of art, and for non-professionals it sometimes can get a little bit difficult to get what is going on and what we're speaking about. I think that media art has an immense amount of ideas and possibilities that can open new ways for working with art and communities. And in the context of this conference that puts diversity, community, and connections of top of its priorities, those opportunities are extremely valuable. And so I would like to explore these possibilities and opportunities with my contribution that is called Digital Unity in Physical Reality. And I really love that in the program you put in the brackets media art after my title, so more people could get what I'm going to be talking about. So first of all, I would like to talk about media art in the context of our conference today. So I will going to start a little bit poetic or so. So nowadays we see the world without any limitations, where physical and geographical boundaries fade away and humanity becomes a globalized community. And this is how an abstract to my paper started when I submitted it back in February. But it seems like it was a completely different world back then. However, the experience with the pandemic that we have all been through only made me more confident in the topic that I have chosen. Over the last month, we all had a chance to see the possibilities that media art has to connect people and to bring people together, and especially the possibility the digital sphere offers in general, creating more democratic and horizontal means of communication. An art can become a crucial tool for creating unity, understanding, and cooperation. And in this process, it's the media art that should become one of the focuses for museum collections. Besides being a significant part of the heritage of tomorrow, media art allows different forms of cooperation and communication between individuals, institutions, and communities. Due to its ephemeral and intangible nature, media art can create connections and penetrate even closed borders. Sometimes it may be difficult to bring a painting or sculpture via borders, but for media art, those borders doesn't exist. You can always share and connect through the ways of media art, because media art in its form proposes concepts of sharing. Being distributed in forms of media files and instructions, media art applies the idea that it can be shared between different owners and different exhibitors, different viewers, without putting itself under any physical risks of damaging the integrity of the work itself. Nowadays, an ability to be shared is a topical issue, since today we all can see a boom of sharing economy that allows more democratic forms of collaboration. And we all can see how our life becomes in some cases more democratic, and we see those in every field. Like we have Airbnb, we have Uber, we have other different commodities that can be shared, that can be distributed between people without some higher authorities. And with media art, it's, of course, it's not a commodity, but still it has the same qualities to itself. And it's media art that can become a tool for bringing those concepts of democratic sharing into museum world. So I would like to offer you some practices that explore these possibilities of media art. So in the beginning, I would like to speak about how, or to like separate two major directions of these practices, to separate them based on their subject. So on one side, we have inclusion of community into museum practices and collaboration into museum practices. And on the other side, we see the collaborations between different institutions. It can be 1, 2, 3, or how many institutions that you can imagine. And I would like to start with the first part about how museums can connect to their audiences through media art, through sharing. Suppose we are speaking about integrating community into practices of the museums, particularly concerning such a conservative field as collecting. In that case, sharing is a way to create more inclusive and horizontal conversation with the audience, not merely to postulate the inclusion, but really make it happen. On one of the example of such an attitude towards media art and towards art is that we can look up to, this is a project by an American artist, Eve Sussman, 89 seconds atomized, that she made together with Snark Art, a New York-based digital lab. So Eve Sussman took the last remaining copy of her highly acclaimed piece, 89 Seconds at Alcazar, and desegregated it into 2,304 units, or atoms, as she called it herself. And each atom was 20 to 20 pixel segment that lasted as long as the whole video lasts. You can see on the slide the examples of those pixels on the platform created by Snark Art. And those atoms were sold to different owners, to different people, individuals, and institutions using blockchain technology. And once all the atoms are sold, the piece turns out to be owned by several hundred individuals. And in some cases, organizations, because some museums have in America have also bought those atoms to their collections. And it was an experiment for the artist. It was experiment with the community, because when the piece is separated into so many atoms, the only way that it can be exhibited in whole is on the basis of collaboration, where with each participant willing and ready to share his or her atom back with the audiences to present them the piece in whole. So I believe it's a beautiful example of sharing, of shared like economy in this case, that constitutes its highest priority, the ability to come to a consensus without any higher authorities. And suppose that museums explore such way of acquiring works, including its audiences on all of the stages of acquisition, from selecting the piece to actually owning it. In that case, implementing of a concept of sharing can help museums to enrich their collections with the art pieces that represent the issues and concerns that really bothers the audience. Because if you're voting not like only putting a like on a Facebook post for choosing some of the works, but you actually, as a representative of audience, as a visitor to the museum, you actually buy it together with the museum that you like, and you actually buy the piece that you truly love, because otherwise you don't want to bother yourself with buying it. And I would like to emphasize here the difference with crowdfunding, because crowdfunding is something that comes to mind when you think about such way of cooperation. But crowdfunding has a little bit a different perception to dealing with a piece of art, because if you buy it through the concept of sharing, you also share the ownership, and it makes it much more meaningful and brings the sense to responsibility into the equation, because now the museum is responsible to their audience, and the audience also becomes responsible to the museum. And when audience becomes co-owners of a piece that they have chosen themselves, it can create a deeper connection between an institution and an individual. It brings us the feeling of interconnectedness, and it helps to create a more loyal and understanding audience, which is extremely essential for an institution. And while at the same time, the audience can get better representation and influence in the activities of the museum. And moreover, unlike crowdfunding, the acquisition through blockchain technology or any other form of shared ownership creates a horizontal system where each participant is treated equally. People in this sphere, they become like equal participants, not just the source of extra funding for buying some work. Another direction that can help to enhance the connection using media art is sharing between institutions. Since media art, as we all know, it's files that can be copied. Of course, the number of copies is limited, and neither artists nor museums can produce extra copies, but you can make special arrangements and special agreements with the artist and with another museum that one copy would be owned equally by your institution and some other institution. This way, media art allows museums to build cooperation between one another in the field of collecting, creating shared collections through joint acquisitions. Shared collections and joint acquisitions are not entirely new phenomenon, but it's definitely a practice that has not been so widely adopted as it should be. And I want to tell you about some examples of this shared acquisition that had already happened in America. And back in 2015, Los Angeles County Museum of Art, LACMA, together with Paris Art Museum in Miami, jointly acquired a highly acclaimed video piece, a 6-hour-long single-channel video installation Luanda, Kinshasa, by Canadian artist Stan Douglas. You can see it on the left or on the right. Actually, I don't know how you see my screen. So it's the one with a man in an orange shirt. And even earlier, they bought together with the Paul Getty Museum a collection of over 2,000 works of Robert Mapplethorpe. And it was as early as in 2011. And through making this acquisition, LACMA and Getty Museum, they showed the highest level of openness and communication, because they needed to adapt their storage system and they needed to synchronize them. So in order that they could store the same objects like in a shared way. And of course, they used the same system, TMS, but it was used by them like in a little bit different way. So they made like a whole long work of actually took them about a year to adapt everything so that it could accommodate their shared owning. And I believe that it's safe to say that LACMA is one of the leading institutions in the field of sharing now, whether we are speaking about physical works like Robert Mapplethorpe, or immaterial artworks like Stan Douglas or the other video artists that they bought. But nevertheless, I would like to repeat myself that even though LACMA and other museums sometimes buy material objects in shared collection, that sharing is more special and more integral concept to the nature of media art itself, because it has non-physical nature. It's easier to be shared, it's easier to distribute between different owners, because actually the principal thing here is not where the copy is, because you can make a new one for exhibition, but it's like the legal part that is the most difficult. But I will come back to the difficulties a little bit later, but I think that we should all think and keep in mind this legal part. So I think that I would like to speak a little bit about how sharing can benefit museums and community. That at first, and I think that is the most principal part, that joint collections offers more opportunities for new narratives to appear, because an artwork becomes a part not of one collection, but of two or more. And it allows different opportunities for exhibiting those artworks, putting them in different contexts, and contextualization within each respective collection can bring new opportunities to think about a particular piece of art and to present it in the exhibitions. So it can benefit to research as well. But besides having such scholarly and scientific advantages, implementing sharing approach can help to deal with the financial burden, because the financial side of the question becomes distributed between all the respective institutions that are involved in the acquisitions. So the concept of sharing allows a lot of possibilities for creating much more stable communities and often different opportunities for dialogue between individuals and institutions, and between institutions and other institutions, because it's the presupposition of an ability to speak to each other, to listen to each other, comes in the concept of sharing, because you can't share something if you can't come to the common ground on any point. And certainly there are some difficulties here, and the principal ones are legal, and principal one are legal, both from the side of the institution and from the sides of the legislation in general. because it requires the respective museum staff who deals with the acquisitions. It can be both like curators, custodians, registrar departments, legal departments. They all have a proper training in the field of ownership rights and especially of copyright laws, as it's the central tool for preserving the integrity of the artwork and to protect interests of the artists, of the individuals involved and the institutions involved. As one of the solutions, it may be to turn to professionals in the respective fields like television and film sphere for expertise. And actually was what we did in our museum when we started media art collection, because it was really hard work to prepare it, because in Russian legislation at the moment there are no legal status for media art at all, and we had to invent everything from scratch. And so as to prepare, so as far as the legal side is one of the key here, we all had to become for some time lawyers and specialists in the copyright law, because sometimes it was really difficult for curators to understand something in this legal sphere. Sometimes why we, for example, why we can do something that for us is extremely easy, but from the legal side, it's not correct. And on the other hand, the same was with our legal department, because they couldn't get the notion of how it's like the same object, but it's sold multiple times. And so we turned to the professionals in the television sphere who work with the distribution. And because there were some parallels here, we asked for their advice. But there is another problem with if you like deal with this stuff problem, you get another problem with sharing. It's the problem with legislation, because it can include norms that are counterintuitive to the presuppositions of sharing economy, like it is with state-owned museums in Russia. Where the state should be the sole owner of any art piece that is in the collection of their museums, art museums, of state-owned art museums, like my museum, for example. So it requires changes in the legislation, because at the moment where we're now in Russia, we can't create shared collections. We tried and we got a no from the authorities on that. But for example, in America, it's possible. And I believe that in other countries it can be possible too. But however, I hope that the benefits of implementing such an approach can help to bring changes to the legislation. And in Russia, it's going to be the legislation is going to be changed after January 1st next year. I don't believe that it's going to include sharing right now, but at least I hope that it's going to include media art. And if it's going to include media art, then maybe for the next changes in the legislation, we are going to have sharing as well. And I would like to conclude my talk with saying that in the world where the resources are limited, sharing is a key to sustainability, and that shared collections are the source for finding understanding and balance of interests, as shared owning implies shared choice. And sharing, even in such conservative fields like the collecting in the museums may seem, is an inevitable feature of tomorrow, and we are going all to find ourselves shared later. So I think this is the end of my short thoughts about sharing right now, and I would be happy to answer any question or to speak in more details about any moments of my presentation.
Thank you, Alina. Thank you for such a wonderful and interesting case related to media art. we first need to apologize to all the participants because Antonio won't make it to this session. So Alina, we're gonna stay with you and all the participants.
Okay.
And we're gonna have around 10-15 minutes of Q&A. And we're gonna welcome now questions from the audience. Let me see. Oh, we have our first question.
Great.
Yes. So do you have experiences or projects on the digital, like digital collection mobility, concepts of sharing, or other ways of dealing with born digital collections and or digitalized collections? Please feel free to share with us. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a question from Daniel, but actually I can elaborate a little bit more here. I've already mentioned it in my presentation that we wanted to create a shared collection because we had a partner who has it as in their practice on regular basis, and we were very enthusiastic about it because it was like actually in 2017 or so. It was the first time that we heard of the concept of sharing collections. Like myself, it was the first time for me, but I believe that for my colleagues, it was also like a new idea, and we really enjoyed it. We really loved the concept. But as I have mentioned, unfortunately, Russian legislation doesn't allow such a thing because in a state-owned institution, all the acquisitions, they are not your property, but they're property of Russian Federation in general. And Russian Federation should own 100% of rights. And we actually prepared an agreement for this shared acquisition where we split the rights 50-50 with the institution, but the agreement was blocked after the consultations with the authorities, and unfortunately we had to stop it. But we hope that we can continue, we can find maybe some solution. Actually, we thought of sub-licensing as a form of sharing, but it's not legally, it's not truly sharing. It's just like you own it and you make your constant sub-licensee some other institution, and you make this sharing only in the general statement that you create with this institution, but on the legal side, it's still like it's your piece in your collection, and you just given them the right, they are not the owners. So we thought that this approach is not something that we are looking for, and we hope for the changes in the legislation in future.
We have Mina. She's saying like this was very interesting. It will be intriguing to extend the concept of sharing to other kind of collections. Do you have any comment on this?
Well, I'm a specialist in media art, but I've read that, of course, there are examples of sharing physical objects, like for the example that I put with Paul Getty Museum, LACMA and Robert Mapplethorpe collection. And there could be like different ways that you store all the items on either on one side or on the other, or in the third party side, and you distribute the rights that you have for showing it and exhibiting it in a separate agreement that you make with that institution. So, and you register it like in all your documents as in your collection, but you split the ownership 50-50. So you become joint owners, and it's actually not a question of what the object really is, whether it's a physical object or a digital one. But with the digital, it's much more easier because it's a file and it's instruction of some sort, and you can split it because it's not a physical, it's a material. But of course, it's much more difficult if there is some dedicated equipment in that piece, because there may be some DIY monitors or something that the artist created and modified especially for the piece, for a digital piece. And there it becomes harder, because you need to decide how to store these objects, and how you're going to share the responsibility if something happens to that object, and if it's lost or some other way. But another option with the media art, that it could be an equipment that was not modified by the artist, but it's some special CRT monitor from 70s. Then both of the institutions can buy it for their needs, and still like split the immaterial part, but physical part they both have their institutions for to use to exhibit the piece that they have both in their collections. Yes, I think so.
Yeah, Alina, we are going to have Cristiana. She will join the conversation with some examples.
Great.
To share with the participants. So, hi, Christian.
Hello, nice to meet all of you. This is a very last minute invitation. I was asked to share a bit of my work at the Baden State Museum in Germany, where I'm the head of a digital project. It's called Creative Collections. And we actually, what we're doing is the museum is trying to open up to its users, and it has a new vision, you could say, and it's trying to make visitors into active users. And we're using the digital to do that. And my job is to create participatory processes and ask our citizens for their ideas. And then we develop digital concepts based on that. And one of the things that we learned is that citizens, they want to have a more active role in the museum, and they want to interact with collections and create their own content, and also have a little bit more fun and games, and so the things that we all know they want. And we actually have just implemented one of our first digital formats, and I'm going to show it to you a little bit. It's a web app, and it's called Your Gift. In German, it's called Dein Geschenk. But what it actually does, and I'm going to share my screen to show you. It's a bit rough because I didn't have time to prepare anything. That's how it looks. It's actually what it does. It gives people a present from the museum at first. So you can choose 3 objects that people will get in this app, and you can record messages and take pictures and send them on a kind of a treasure hunt, and they can interact with our collections. But the really great thing is that they can make their own gift. So so people can visit our museum and record their visit to their loved ones. So they can say, "Oh, dear grandma, due to COVID, you have to stay home, but here are the objects I like, and this is my story that I'm telling." And it's actually, if you open a gift, what the app does, it wraps the things into a gift, and it makes it a special experience. And you open it, and then you see the objects that are chosen. This is actually the gift from our museum director, who's really into antique vases. So that's what it is. And then you have the 3 parts, and you also get a narrator who guides you through the experience, and then you hear what your friend or relative recorded for you. And it's like you click through, then you hear the audio and you continue, and there's like a clue how to find the objects, and then you have to find it, and then you can listen to the message, and you can do this 3 times. And I'm stopping the share now. But the cool thing about this is, and that's why we did it, because of COVID, it's really hard to visit the museum in big groups or with your elderly relatives. And you can really, our users now can really interact with our collections and tell their own stories. But also, it's possible to revisit the museum visit with people that are not able to come right now. So, and you can use this for a variety of things. You can use it as a challenge, or as a treasure hunt, or even I think you could propose to somebody using it. So that's really a lot you can do with it. And it's an open source framework that we developed together with a British artist collective, Blast Theory, and we're further developing it. But every museum can actually use it now. So it's free, it's open source. And we hope that this could be one step to make the museum a more dynamic place, and for our visitors to engage more and have a space for their stories. And the digital is actually, I think, a very good way to do that, in my opinion, to have more creative and open and interactive experiences. So that was a little bit the short version of what we do.
So Alina, any comments on that? What do you think about this?
Well, actually, I really like it, and I immediately started thinking about how nice media art would fit into this, because you can send the short teasers or short extracts that you especially loved to your loved ones to share it. So I think it's really nice, a nice example. And as my main thesis was that media art implies to sharing very much, and I think that in this application it can be done too. So I would think that we're going to maybe think about it somehow. Actually, we were thinking about making some items in digital souvenir shop or something, but it was just some thoughts, and we're really glad to see that there's actually people who are doing such things, digital souvenirs. And I hope that we are going to explore at our museum something like that too, because we are now very active in the digital part. So it's really nice initiative, and it's really cool that you're making it an open source, because it's also shared. As usual, everything is shared now.
So Alina, if you're familiar with, you mentioned this project between LACMA and the Getty, and you talk about the TMS system. So are you familiar, if you can describe the process of integrating the art piece that they work with between the LACMA and the Getty?
Actually, we in Russia we don't work with TMS, so I can only say that they just made like cross referencing their fields in the TMS, because they have like the same system, but they have different approaches toward it, and they put information a little bit differently. So they cross-referenced all the fields that they have. They made some changes so it becomes like more similar to each other, and also they made a change so they can include both the register numbers from both of the museums. And when you download information, for example, from TMS in LACMA Museum, you also get respective fields from the TMS of Get Museum. So you get register information from both of the museums for all your needs. And also, I don't remember, but I think that it was Getty, as far as it was rather large acquisition of more than 2,000 pieces. They also made special script that allows to make really fast to fill in the similar fields really fast, so that you don't need to put information 2,000 times, but there is just some script that makes it for you. So it was something like that. Actually, if I am going to be fast enough, maybe I will find the article about that, and I can share it in chat box. I hope that so when I find it, I will share it, but I think that it's somewhere easy to find, actually, should be.
So So while you are like searching for this, can you explain to our audience a little bit more about the concept of blockchain that you mentioned in your presentation, and since when it has been incorporated to museums?
Yes, so actually we made a special event about the opportunities of the blockchain technology in the in the museums, especially when dealing with media art. So if you buy something through a blockchain, it can help to verify the source of the acquisition from where you bought it, because each transaction in blockchain system, it has a unique key, unique hash that cannot be frauded. So if you if in the initial part the something is uploaded to that system for distribution or for some other materials from the owner, you can guarantee that, looking through the hashes and everything, that it can be tracked back to the author, for example, if it's a living author, or the owner of the rights. So this way you can guarantee that it's an original piece. And with the media art, it's especially difficult because it's just a file that can be copied, and you can download it to yourself from the internet if the artist places the whole videos on Vimeo, for example. And surely the videos are in the much lower quality than the exhibition copies, and even surely master copies, but still, like for non-professional, it's going to look the same. Or maybe even if a professional, if you look like on a laptop, all the copies might look the same. It doesn't matter whether it's like 65 gigabytes master file or 1 gigabyte screen copy. And with the blockchain technology, through those hashes, you can get how that copy came to being, so that it was actually sold by the artist to somebody, and then maybe to somebody else, and to somebody else, but still it's not something that you made yourself, copied, stole, or something like that. So it's like this, and you can verify the ownership, actually. Yes.
Yes, okay. So, and can you mention some other museums that are like interested in acquiring like pieces like the one that you mentioned, like the 89 seconds atomizer, like some other
Yes.
museums doing similar things?
Well, actually, when you buy for this project for 98 seconds atomized, when you buy this 20 to 20 atom, it becomes a piece of art in its own right. So, like if Sussman agreed that this is also an art, this small section, but to see it in a whole, you need like to get the agreement from everybody. And so some institutions in the USA agreed. I'm not sure that I can say the names of the institutions, because we got that information from the Snark Art Lab, because we were also interested in buying one atom of the piece, but with the difficulties in legislation, we couldn't do this. But I hope that we could do this, because since it's not, since the atom is not a part, it legally can be a piece in its own right. It's easier, like for museums like ours, to buy it. But for American museums, as we got it, it doesn't matter whether it's like a piece or not. They have no problems with this sharing concept because of the legislation they have. So it's some of the American museums that were interested in that.
So the concept of sharing digitally differs within countries. Is complicated. Is a challenge.
Yes, it's really complicated, because in Russia, the legislation on museums, it dates back to the 70s, when it was USSR. And we actually, in legislation, we don't even have like private museums or something like that. So if we lend the works to private museums for exhibitions, if you want to follow the laws like maximum strictly, it can be allowed, but everybody understands that it's a new country now, and this legislation is like 40 years old. So there are changes that we expect, and actually we received a letter from the Ministry of Culture that the legislation is going to be altered in 2021, but we don't know whether it's going to include after all media art or not, but we hope that it will do, because it's really, really difficult, and we need to invent our own eternal regimens for dealing with media art.
So Alina, thank you. We have a question from one of the participants, and the question is, with the growing digital initiative of museums, do you have any advice on how to ensure that there is no disconnect between its online voice and on-site voice?
Well, I think that we need to understand that it's really different types of activities, providing like some online activities for your visitors and having them come to you, because I believe that the going into the museum is going always to have its own voice and its an experience of itself. And like from my field, media art seen on videos on your screen of a laptop and media art seen in the exhibition is completely different experience. But for example, we during the pandemic, my department, we started a project 100 ways to live a minute, and within this project, we one of the sections of it was screenings of media art from only YouTube, and we actually continuing this now. And at the moment, we have a screening of Ken Jacobs running on YouTube, on the YouTube of our museum. But it's nothing compared to when you see Ken Jacobs or any other artist in the museum atmosphere, in the atmosphere of the screen, atmosphere of the exhibition, because they're just like the physical parts, that the screens are going to be bigger, the sound is going to be different, and the atmosphere is going to be different. But so I don't think that museums should be afraid to lose their voice going online, or like because it's normal that the messages maybe for online audience and offline audience is going to be different, because we should understand that some part of our online audience, it's never going to visit our museums offline because they may live in different countries, or they may not be able to travel, or they may have some some physical maybe problems that don't allow them to come to our museums. And so these are very not very different, but separate activities. Surely they have like the same message that the museum wants to tell everybody, but we shouldn't be afraid to make online broadcasts of the lectures that we are making, to share like we did media art online, because it doesn't make the offline experience less valuable. It's just a different one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Alina, what advice would you give to museum professionals to overcome all of the challenges of adapting to digital platforms nowadays?
Well, I think that the first and the main is not to be afraid, because like I said, it doesn't make the experience that you give in the museum less valuable. It's just a completely different activity. And I think the first thing that everybody needs to understand, and to make digital digital content, you need to hire specialists in that field, because unfortunately, as like we understood through this pandemic, people like who are curators or researchers, it's very difficult for them sometimes to get outside of the box and to start to speak into the online audience. And they need to have a lot of people who can help them to share what they have to share. And I think that it would be a nice time to say thank you for our digital department, for the IT department of our museum, because without them, none of the knowledge, none of the art, none of anything that we have to share would be shared. And the digital IT specialists and like SMM managers and everybody else, they're like key to this. And of course, you can make a lot on your own if you have some experience in like social media or making Zoom conferences or anything. But the best way to start is to start with people who know what you're doing, because when you are afraid to do something, they know exactly how it can be done, what to do with this, and they would just help you to do that, help you to share what you have. So something like that.
Okay, thank you so much, Alina. If we don't have any more questions from the participants, I guess that we can.
We have one more question in the Q&A.
Oh, we have a question. Let me see. Oh, this is for Christian. How popular is the app that you presented? Do visitors use it often?
I don't have any numbers yet because we only started last week. So right now what we're doing, we're giving all of our visitors a postcard where they can use the app. So I'd have to wait a little more, but my colleagues use it quite often already. They always send me things from other museums and from vacation. And yesterday I received a birthday invitation using the app. But the developers, the Blast Theory guys, they did extensive research when they developed the original app. It was an EU-funded project, and they would know. But I don't, for our version, I don't have numbers yet.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? No, I think that Alina is still searching for something.
Yes, I've just found it because it somehow didn't open on one program, and I finally found it. So here it's okay. The article that I was telling you about on Getty and LACMA, how they were working with the Robert Mapplethorpe acquisition.
Okay, great. The article is in the chat box for everybody to access. So thank you so much, Alina, for this very interesting conversation and topics, and thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. I hope that it was useful somehow, and thank you for everybody for the questions. And I'm going to download this application from the museum and to maybe send somebody a gift.
Cool. I would be very glad if many people use it and have fun with it.
Okay, I see that somebody can't see the link. Joanna, we will, I just got the link, so I will get the PDF and I will share it with you via your email then.
No, I will share it again with everyone right now. It should be fine.
Oh, it was only with the panelists. That's why. Then I would like to conclude this great last session, and it was actually nice to have maybe a smaller setup because before the sessions were quite crowded, to have a little bit more time in these topics. Also, Christiane, thanks for last minute jumping in and adding just another way of digital working and what we can do in museums and connect together with the example of Alina. This ends actually the full day that we had today. We went from connecting collections to contemporary collecting to digital collections. So I would like to conclude with just some last remarks for you. Tomorrow there is the COMCOL annual members meeting for COMCOL members, but also people who are interested to become a member of COMCOL. Please join us to learn more about what we are doing, why we're doing it, and what the plans are for the next coming year. And after that, our young members, board members will have a kickoff of the Young Professional Network. So they will have an interactive session to find out what the needs and the questions are for young professionals to set up a network. And we hope that many will join to help them build something that we can all use to exchange more. And then finally, on Saturday, we have a great workshop that we jointly organize with the Jewish Museum in Berlin. I just learned that there's just 5 spots left. So if you really want to do it, sign up now, because the places there are limited. It's a workshop around talking objects. So if you want to learn more, have a look at our website to see the rest of the program. And for now, I would like to thank you for have been joining us today, and I wish you a good night or a good day. And hopefully I will see you again tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.